I thought I was filming and realized that I wasn't. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm a trauma and healing coach for Muslim women. I help Muslim women heal from complex trauma and build a beautiful life ahead of them. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you can go to the link in my description to learn more about my trauma group coaching program. It is my most popular program, has helped women reach incredible heights in their healing. I'm taking applicants for the April cohort, which is actually the one right after Ramadan. It's one of my favorite to run because there's so much barakah in it. So you guys have been asking me to make this video for a while, and I have my notes and I'm ready to do it. So I hope you stick until the end of the video to, inshallah, get the most value and benefit from this. We're going to be talking about narcissism, and more specifically, the different types of narcissism. The thing about narcissism and the way that term is kind of thrown around, you hear on social media, people use the word, it's very misplaced and often overused, is that what can be claimed as narcissism looks different in different situations. And from the perspective of a trauma coach, I'm not all too concerned about whether you want to label something narcissism or not. I want to know how the narcissistic behaviors affect you and affect your need for healing or your ability to heal. So we are going to talk about, inshallah, 3 different types of narcissists in this video, what to look out for, and how this actually affects a child growing up and eventually the adult that becomes you who's watching this video. This is a part of a 2-video series, so there's going to be another video talking about the other 3. So let's get started. The first type of narcissist I want to talk about is the Grandiose Narcissist. Now, this is typically back a few years ago, when you thought about narcissists, this is what you thought about. The Grandiose Narcissist is someone who is just purely focused on how they look, how they appear, what their accomplishments are, how much value they can appear to bring to the world, and being doted on because of that, being, people just, falling head over heels because of their accomplishments. Now, the Grandiose Narcissist, it's often not understood that the big reason why they have this type of front-facing grandiosity is because there's a tremendous amount of shame below that. It's almost like they're living in this world of, if I can't show how valuable I am, if I can't show how amazing I am, if people can't tell me that, the insecurity and the shame from that is so heavy that it breaks that person down. So how does it affect a person who's growing up with a grandiose narcissist? Well, if you're a child who had a parent who was a grandiose narcissist, then you realize pretty quickly that you don't matter unless there's something about you that your parent can brag about. And so the damage that comes from growing up with a grandiose narcissist is that, first of all, they teach you that so much of your worth is placed in accomplishments, which is something that so many of my clients struggle with. And it eats you up alive, because at the end of the day, if your worth is only based on what you're able to accomplish, then your worth is based on your productivity. And productivity, especially in kind of a Western capitalistic society like the one we live in, the one I live in, I know people are watching this from all around the world, is extremely mentally draining, emotionally draining, and spiritually draining. So that's one piece of what can happen. But the other piece is that when you don't accomplish, the grandiose narcissist will withhold their love. And so you learn very quickly, as a child does based on the patterns of interaction between their parent and child, that in order to even be able to receive love, you have to be good enough to receive it. Now, this isn't how life actually works. You are deserving of love from your child, from your parent, because you are a child, and that is your Islamic right to be loved and cared for and emotionally protected and emotionally nurtured. But children of grandiose narcissists don't get to experience that. They're not given that right. And so because of that, it can be a very heavy burden on them and can really mess with the way that they understand how they deserve love, even as an adult. So as an adult, the child of a grandiose narcissist will find themselves just overwhelmed with this need for accomplishment, to be seen. They tend to have struggle with very low self-esteem. They might even become and develop their own grandiose narcissism, because that is the way that they saw their parent, and so they start thinking that that's the way in which other people are going to praise them, and they're going to receive care and concern from other people. By the way, guys, if the lighting is changing, I'm just next to the window trying to use natural light, so I hope that doesn't bother you. The next type of narcissist I want to talk about is the communal narcissist. Now, the communal narcissist is an interesting one because they sound like the grandiose narcissist, but it's a little different. The communal narcissist is essentially wanting to be validated for the things that they do for other people. They want to be able to say, like, look at me, look at how helpful I am, look at how you need me, look at how I constantly volunteer for things. I'll put myself in situations, and it's not from the goodness of my own heart because this is something I'm passionate about, or because I care about people, or from an Islamic perspective because I know Allah is going to be pleased with it, but it's because they want to be seen in the world, specifically doing things for other people. Little fuzzy. So they want to be seen in the world, specifically doing things for other people. The way this affects the child of a communal narcissist is there's often this kind of dissociation from reality, and that people see the communal narcissist and they don't know what the intention is behind that. They don't see what's going on there. They are, come to the child and say, oh my God, look how amazing your mother or father is. They're always volunteering in the masjid. They always volunteer in these events. Like, they're so, wow, you're so lucky to be a child of this person. And on the other hand, at home, because the service at home is not seen by the outside world, the communal narcissist will disconnect from their service to their home. And it's not because they're tired, but because it's not seen as valuable, because it can't be seen by other people. Now, this is very confusing. I think this actually can cause a very intense spiritual disconnect for the child of the communal narcissist, because you feel like, well, is it wrong that I feel weird about the fact that they're doing all of this good stuff? Sometimes it's even like sadaqah related things. But at home, I'm neglected by them. And so this can cause a tremendous amount of resentment for a child of the communal narcissist. And that can cause a lot of confusion. The next type of narcissist that I want to talk about is the neglectful narcissist. The neglectful narcissist sees their relationship as transactional. They do not see relationships, even the parent-child relationship, as a give and take. They don't see themselves as just being willing to give out of the goodness of their heart. They only come to you when they need something from you. They only remember you when it's of value to their life. What is it like being a child of a neglectful narcissist? These children struggle with hyper-independence. Why? Because the neglectful narcissist is not dependable. So if a parent is a neglectful narcissist, then they're neglecting you very often, emotionally, maybe mentally and physically, or physically. And you have to learn very quickly how to meet your own needs. And when you are learning all of these things and you recognize, wow, my parent only cares about me when they need something, that also creates a tremendous amount of resentment and strains the parent-child relationship. Children of neglectful narcissists can grow up being very untrusting of other people. And it makes sense because they grew up in a situation where one of the closest relationships to them, the most important relationship, I would even argue, or at least one of the top three, was built on that person only coming to you when it benefited them. And so you start to get very suspicious of other people. Are other people going to be doing the same thing to me? The neglectful narcissist does not see any issue with the fact that they are taking and not giving. And as a child, it's near impossible, if you have a parent who's a neglectful narcissist, to even be able to explain to your parent why this is troublesome, right? You might not even realize that that's not normal until you grow up, look back, and realize, wow, I felt like I was being used. So what does healing look like for these different types of children of narcissists? Obviously, this is something that's, important to discuss, because if we're talking about healing from the trauma of growing up with a parent who wasn't dependable, who wasn't present, who withheld love, that is going to really damage your inner child. And eventually, that's your front-facing part when you go out into the world as an adult. It can cause a lot of issues in terms of your self-esteem, your mental health, your relationship, the success of your marriage. You guys should know all of this if you watch my videos and you're familiar with the content that I make. I have a whole video about the inner child, what the inner child is, how to heal it, how does that affect trauma. I have a video about the way trauma affects marriage and the success of marriage. But when it comes to the grandiose narcissist, if you are a child of the grandiose narcissist who is so fixated on achievement, healing for you looks like understanding and learning that your value doesn't come strictly from what you're able to produce or what people tell you is valuable. Your value comes from the fact that you are a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have inherent value as a human being. Your value comes from the relationship that you build with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a consequence of that relationship, if you are truly following the Quran, which tells us to have iman and to do righteous action, you will produce value for other people. But the value you produce for other people is not because you want people to see you as valuable, not because you want to be fawned over and people to constantly praise you. It's because you want to achieve the love and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you do it through his through the acts that are most beloved to him. And that is first your fard, and then after that your extra nawafil, the extra good deeds that you do, which many times will include serving and helping other people. When it comes to the communal narcissist, right, being the child of a parent who only cares about service when it's front-facing and neglects you, a lot of that healing is going to look like, first off, releasing and healing the resentment that comes from that. 2 is going to be recognizing the importance of moderating intentions, right? Understanding that the lack of intentions or healthy intentions, right, which ultimately affects the reward we get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a beautiful hadith that you hear me reference all the time. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Indeed, all actions are by intentions, and for every person is what he intended, the reward for what he intended, right? So when you do a good deed with a bad intention or for the sake of those people, on the day of judgment, there's another hadith regarding this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, essentially, why are you coming to Allah for the reward? You already got your reward from the people. Your intention was to do it for people, and they praised you and they appreciated it, so you get no reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's really scary when you think about it. So understanding that is a sickness of the heart. And sometimes when we can look at things in terms of the spiritual diseases that come with it, it makes it a lot easier to come to terms with the damage that it caused. It doesn't invalidate the damage that it caused. It doesn't invalidate the resentment that you are feeling, but it helps you to at least build a bit of empathy to help you heal. The empathy that we build when we're doing healing work doesn't exist to rid the other person of responsibility. This is really important. It doesn't exist. You're never going to hear me on my channel, or if you are one of my clients, hear me tell you that you have to forgive someone. That is your Islamic right to decide whether you do that or not. Allah gives you that right. I can't tell you what to do with it. But what you will hear me say is that empathy is a skill that can be incredibly healing, because it helps to offset some of the shame and guilt on you, for you understanding that what you didn't receive wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And you can understand the reason behind why your parent was not able to give, or decided not, if it wasn't an issue of ignorance, decided not to give you what they gave. And you can understand that as a spiritual sickness, instead of holding on to the shame of blame of, was I not good enough to receive that service? Was I not important enough? Healing from the neglectful narcissist looks a lot like starting to disconnect from this hyper-independence. Hyper-independence is a very common trauma response, and it's a very valuable one, right? All trauma responses that we have exist for a reason, and your hyper independence helps you to survive, and it helps you to not need to depend on other people, especially if depending on other people when you were young, a child who had no choice but to depend on people, was painful or caused a lot of suffering. But hyper independence is a huge strain on you mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in a world to connect with people. Jama'ah, this idea of community, is a very important concept in Islam. And healing from that hyper independence allows you to come to this place where you understand, I will do things for me, right? And take care of things for myself if I'm competent to do it and I want to. But I'm going to come from a place of empowerment, where I'm not choosing to do this because I'm so afraid that someone else is going to hurt me. I'm choosing what I do for myself and versus what I allow other people to do, because I want to choose what is going to be best for my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. And if it means that I'm burning out because I'm trying to do everything on my own, or my mental health is deteriorating, instead of falling back into that trauma responsive hyper independence, I'm going to seek help from people that are trustworthy. I'm going to learn how to trust again and learn how to identify who actually can be trusted, instead of just defaulting to this trauma response. With all of that being said, I hope that this was a helpful video for you and that you learned a lot. But I have one more video, and in that video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the most dangerous type of narcissist, as well as the narcissist that many people actually don't recognize as a narcissist, that can be one of the most damaging narcissists to a child's upbringing, mental health, and even emotional and spiritual health. If you like this video, then please like it, comment, and subscribe, and tune into the second video. Assalamu alaikum.